Good evening. We will call this meeting to order. We will first have our invocation given to us by Councilmember Don Munson, followed by the pledge to the flag. So please stand as you are able.
God, we come once again to this place and time to fulfill our responsibilities as mayor and city council to the citizens of Hagerstown. Our challenges are great and our resources are limited. We would therefore ask that you, God, imbue us with a can-do attitude and the determination and will to overcome the adversities, no matter how difficult, that we may fulfill our responsibilities to all those Hagerstown citizens whose lives we shall touch. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much. Announcements. We are following the rules of procedure adopted on September 24th, 2013. Use of cell phones during meetings is restricted. All correspondence for distribution to elected officials should be provided to the city clerk and should include a copy for the city clerk for inclusion in the official record. Just to review our meeting schedule again for April, next Tuesday there will be no meeting. Our work session will be on the 14th and the 21st at 4 p.m. On Tuesday, the 28th, we'll have a budget work session at 4 p.m. and a regular session scheduled that evening at 7 p.m. And just so you know, we will be discussing the budget before the 28th. We're just going to have a special budget work session on that date. We do have several appointments. We could take them, I guess, by board or on whole. I guess we should do it by each board. Is there a motion for appointing Travis Poole to the Board of Zoning Appeals?
So moved, Mr. Mayor.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say no. Next, on the Historic District Commission, we have Samantha Jo Taylor, term to expire on June 30th, 2016.
Move for appointment, Mr. Mayor.
Second.
Motion and a second to appoint Samantha Taylor. Any discussion? All those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say no. The Community Development Block Grant Public Service Review Committee, there are 3 people being appointed: William Godwin, Lawrence Maynard Jr., and Todd Morin, all of their terms to expire on April 1st, 2016.
Mr. Mayor, hereby move to appoint William Godwin, Lawrence Maynard Jr., Todd Morin to the Community Development Block Grant Public Service Review Committee, terms to expire April 2016.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say no. Thank you for those appointments. And now we are at citizen comments. We have 3 folks signed up, and so I will just go in the order that they are listed here. The first person on the list is Mr. Tim Thompson. I will remind folks that citizen comments are limited to 5 minutes per individual. Our meetings are televised and recorded. Your comments will be on air and on tape and on YouTube. Mr. Thompson.
Yes, hi.
Hi. Welcome back.
Yes. Back in November, I came and approached the council about these banners. And basically, anybody watching on TV, if you're a veteran, I'd like for you to listen to everything that's being said tonight. I came to the city and asked about putting these banners up for veterans. Don't look at me. I'm a spokesperson for every person that's on this here banner. And everybody in Washington County, except for Sharpsburg, and I got a meeting with them on the 6th of April, has adopted this program. They're anxious about it, except for the city of Hagerstown. 2 weeks ago, I came, it was a work session, and I listened there, and one thing that I guess kind of bothered, Mr. Brubaker, you said, none of us lasts forever. What happens if Mr. Thompson passes away? I think what should have been said in that there, if something happens to Mr. Thompson, I would be honored to take this program over to make sure it continues. And I think, Lou, I think you should have done the same thing. I think if something were to happen to Mr. Brubaker, I think you should have stood up and said, if something happens to Mr. Brubaker, I would be honored to do our veterans, to make sure this program is going. And Mr. Mayor, I think you should have said, as long as I'm mayor of this city, I'll make sure this program is going. And I could have asked all you guys, none of us knows, but I think that's what should have been said. You know, don't look at me as the one that you're giving this sort of thing to. Look at these people right here. Right now, I got hands full of applications that people want their polls in the city of Hagerstown. You know, and it's not our polls, it's their polls. And right now, I guess I'm asking you guys, why has it took 5 months for you guys to make a decision? When I was in Boone's Bar last night, and they said this is a no-brainer, absolutely, we want to participate in this program. Hancock, Clear Spring, Williamsport, they're all saying the same thing. And I think they should be, and I don't think we should we should have every poll in downtown Hagerstown, but I think it'd be an honor to our veterans to be put in our main streets of downtown. Now, it was mentioned about putting them out in Millie Parkway. I think that's great because the Korean memorial is out there, and I actually talked to the Korean people that started that monument out there, and I think that's a great idea. There's 8 poles out there, so there could be double banners out there. It's a nice area. Now, Mr. Messenger said about Memorial Boulevard. It's a great name, but I think it's a terrible place for banners because there's absolutely nowhere to park out there. There's nowhere on Memorial Boulevard you can park.
Well,
You can't.
We
you
do have a
can't-
new park coming, so there'll be parking at the new park.
Well, and really it isn't, because during the day, the employees of the city takes the parking lot. If someone comes in a walker or a wheelchair, there's everything's stone back there. And if their banner is halfway down Memorial Boulevard, how are they supposed to get from point A to point B? Because like I said, down on Frederick Street, there's no parking until you get to Mill Street, and on Potomac Street, you almost gotta go to Locust Point to get parking, because the school parking's not there anymore. And I talked to Rose Hill out there, and, you know, they don't want the public coming in and using all their parking spots up, and I can't blame them. And I don't think, and once you get where the city shed is, it's kind of an eyesore area, because why would you want military banners when you got the city shed there, and then in behind there, it looks kind of rough in there. Now, back along the cemetery, it looks fine, but there's absolutely no parking down there. You know, and these families is going to come, you know, and I think they should be downtown, because you know, everybody wants people to come downtown. I think these banners is going to pull people downtown, because, you know, their family members not going to ride down past their sign and say, oh, there's my grandfather. They're going to stop, and several family members is going to stop, and they're going to stand at the bottom of the base, and it's going to be a happy occasion, but it's going to be a sad occasion at the same time. You know, while they're down there, they say, well, let's go over and get something to eat. It's a way to draw people downtown. And I ain't saying it should be every poll, but I think this mayor and council should honor these veterans and put them on the main street, not on backside streets. And, you know, and as right now, I haven't started a website. I stopped the billboards. I was putting four billboards throughout Washington County. I stopped that there because I want Hagerstown to be part of it, because, you know, basically, I think you guys should be the leader of Washington County. You know, I have city officials that wants these banners. I got fistfuls of applications, and I don't have an answer to give them. I need an answer. And I got county commissioners that wants them. Everybody you talk to has someone in their family that they want to honor. And I guess my answer is, why hasn't City of Hagerstown honored our veterans?
Well, I think your question is not really why haven't we honored our veterans. I think we honor our veterans in a lot of ways. And I think based on the conversation we had a couple weeks ago, I think there is support on the council for these banners. It may not be in the form or manner that you prefer, but I think the direction we gave our staff was to work with you to make this happen. So I think the reason why we're thinking of the practicalities of how is a program like this going to continue and be effective to achieve the goals that you are stating, which is to honor these people who serve their country. But, you know, based on my experience working with groups of people, it is important to have a plan in place. And it may not be as easy here in Hagerstown as it is in Hancock or Boonesboro or anywhere else. But I hope that you will continue to work with our staff to make this program viable in Hagerstown. I don't think that our conversation a couple weeks ago in any way indicated that we were opposed to this or that we don't want to honor our veterans. I do think that there are practical considerations, and that's what we wanted our staff to work with you on.
Well, I guess, can I ask you what kind of a time frame we're looking at? Because like I said, I don't have answers for people. I mean, there's been people call the city of Hagerstown wanting my number because they've heard it through the grapevine about this military project, and they're calling the city asking for my name and number, and I don't have an answer for them. And like I
Well-
said, there's city officials that wants banners also. I don't have an answer for anybody.
Well, I would suggest that maybe we even sit down and have a meeting, come up with that plan.
Oh, no, I've been talking with the city official for 4.5 months now.
Okay, well, I don't have the information about what's been happening at those meetings, so I will have to get that information. But I do think that within a reasonable time frame, we can get some kind of plan in place.
That's what we need, I need to progress on this here. And like I said, if you guys have any questions, you don't have to use someone else to answer my questions. I'm here to answer any question you got from any of you.
Can I ask a question? Who's the
Yes.
city official that he's talking to? Where did we direct him to go? We're saying staff, where did he go?
He's been working with
John
Aaron.
Letitia's office.
He's been working primarily with Aaron,
Okay,
Aaron Wolf.
all right. Mr. Thompson, could you please take my phone number down? I'd like to talk to you privately. It's 301-790-3839.
When would you like for me to
Okay,
call?
you can call anytime, all
Okay.
right? If I don't pick up right away, it's because I'm either out taking care of the dogs, I'm doing something. Leave it there, and I'll call you back. Put your phone number there,
I will.
okay?
I appreciate you saying that.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next on the list is Kevin Spielman. Mr. Spielman.
Yeah, I just came to personally thank Penny Nye for all the time she spent over the last week finding out who owned this big bush on Baltimore Street. At first, I was told that my landlord owned it, Potomac Towers. I went to them first. They said, no, we do not own it. So then I went to the attorney where the place is for sale. They said no, either the city of Hagerstown or Potomac Towers. So nobody knew who owned it. As it turns out, Penny called me. My landlord does own it, but they aren't aware of it. They're not sure where the property line is. So they need to be made aware that they own that bush. It needs to be either cut down or trimmed. There's homeless people sleeping under it, winos. It's growing over the city-owned benches. It needs either trimmed or cut down.
You said this is a bush on Baltimore Street?
Yeah,
Okay. Well, I know Ms. Nye serves on as our council liaison to the Hagerstown Housing Authority, so I'm assuming that you've made contact with them already?
Mayor,
Ms.
we
Nye?
I just found out today
Oh,
that in
okay.
fact it does belong to Potomac Towers after 2 days of trying to search through. It is Potomac Towers. So what I've been told is that code is now going to Potomac Towers to get something done. But they also have a board meeting, Housing has a board meeting this coming month. So if it's not done within that time frame, then their meeting is the second Thursday of the month.
I
Okay.
just wanted to thank you.
You're welcome, Mr. Spielman.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Next, we have Mary Haynes. Ms. Haynes.
Mary W. Haynes, 27 Laurel Street, Hagerstown, 21742. Good evening, YouTube audience. This is another installment in the ongoing saga of the presentation on the almshouse, otherwise known as the workhouse or the poorhouse. And veterans, pay attention, there's a precedent here. About how we treat our American warriors. The Confederates had taken 5 or 6 prisoners in this early part of the engagement. This is about the retreat of the Confederate forces through Hagerstown in 1863. And as they were pressed too hard coming through Hagerstown and could not get away, they shot the men down in the open field in front of the almshouse, which field was afterwards used as a burial ground for soldiers. If I'm a little disjointed here, it's because I really don't have the time to read all of what should be going in front of it. What they're talking about is the Confederates had Union prisoners and they shot them down in front of the almshouse, according to this gentleman, but he did write this 30 years later, so it's a secondary source, printed in the New York Times, 1896. The location of the soldiers' bodies already buried in 1862 on the almshouse grounds is unknown. Let me repeat that the Confederates had taken 5 or 6 prisoners in this early part of the engagement, and since they could not get away with them, they shot these men down in the open field in front of the almshouse, which field was afterwards used as a burial ground for soldiers. Now, we've got American soldiers shot down in front of the almshouse and buried somewhere there. We've also got established that in 1832 through 1834, there was a cholera epidemic and the victims were brought to the almshouse for care. We also have established that in the late 1840s or early 1850s, a black female slave was brought up from Boonesboro with a badly damaged arm and leg, and there in the almshouse she received an operation performed by 2 doctors that removed her arm and part of her knee under the use of chloroform. So there's the almshouse being used as a hospital. Hospitals of the American Civil War, open houses, barns, sheds, and open barnyards were crowded with the moaning and dying human beings. Next, about 200 bodies are buried in this place, mostly of those who died in the hospital here after the Battle of Antietam. A few were killed near where they were buried when Kilpatrick attacked Lee's retreating army. Some rebel dead are buried here. Those are not disturbed. About 30 bodies were taken up the first day. This could be, let me see, government hands have been engaged in removing the remains of Union soldiers from the burying ground near the Washington County Almshouse to the Antietam Cemetery. And last but not least, I have a list of almshouse lot disinterments. How much time have I got left? Enough to give these men the respect they're
2
due?
minutes.
Well, then I'll be back in April, because I'm not about to go through a list of American warriors who were disinterred, whose names we know, at the speed of light. I can't do that. So I will go on. Sick and wounded soldiers were cared for in private homes as well as churches and other buildings in Washington County. Oliver Wendell Holmes, Jr., son of the poet of the same name, and later Supreme Court Justice, convalesced at Mount Prospect, otherwise known as the Rochester House, torn down to make a parking lot by this fine town. This was the home of the granddaughter of Thomas Kennedy, who was responsible for the passage of a bill granting Jews the right to hold public office in Maryland. One possible place of medical care for the Confederate soldiers was the almshouse. The almshouse graveyard was used when no one claimed a body, and location of soldiers' bodies already buried in 1862 on the almshouse ground is not known. The point I'm trying to make here is that it's probable, most likely, that the almshouse was used to treat the soldiers who were moaning and wounded and dying, and that makes the inside of that property, as far as I'm concerned, hallowed ground. Now, we may have treated the bodies of those who were buried around the almshouse disrespectfully, have put macadam over top of them, but that doesn't mean that we have to continue to disrespect that building. And I'd also like to point out that...
Hold on a second. Can I stop you there? Are you saying that any reuse of that property is disrespectful
No,
of
I'm
anyone
saying
who
that-
passed through those doors before?
reuse of the building should take into consideration its use beforehand, which means that you have to take into account that American warriors died in front of the place, and probably, we can't prove it was a hospital, my researcher, who still demands to remain anonymous, nobody has been able to find a place where the almshouse was labeled as a Civil War hospital. But
Can anyone prove that there are still bodies buried there?
I don't know, has anybody done a Richard III job?
Well, I
on
mean,
the
I heard you
macadam?
mention that the bodies were disinterred and moved to another cemetery. So I'm wondering, there had to have been a bigger lot at some point.
Oh, there was
Because
a
the city
huge
grew
lot.
around the almshouse, and I can't imagine even in the mid-1800s that they would have built houses on top of graves.
Oh, yes, indeedy. That's what this gentleman was just telling me. Bethel Gardens is buried on top of, it was built on top of graves that are still
Bethel
intact.
Gardens in the early 70s, I worked for Callis Contractors. I was 18, 19 years old, and I personally, with me and another guy, which he's still living, Larry Reeder of Smithburg, this was a city project, Bethel Gardens was, and I personally...
No, it's not a city
Yeah, it
project.
was- Yeah, I think it was.
It's a private project.
Okay.
Private development.
But there where Bethel Church was, the graveyard, there's two houses sitting on top of a graveyard. And I personally, a cemetery in the north end was supposed to come in and collect all bones that we hit. They come in, got a half of a 5-gallon bucket, and they left. We actually poured concrete over top of bodies. And the city inspector passed all this. It was myself and another guy, which is still living, can verify what I'm saying. So if the city did allow us to pour, and a lot of the caskets was there was wooden caskets, was sealed in glass, because we actually broke the glass when we was digging footers. But we actually poured concrete over top of bodies. Am I proud of what I did? No, not at all. But I did do that because I was working for a company, that's what I was supposed to do. So the city did allow us to pour concrete over top of skeletons.
And that was decades and decades ago, right? What were we talking,
Early
60s,
70s.
70s?
And that's not decades and decades ago, that's still modern times.
It was before my time, I'm sorry.
Okay.
That's my only point, is
And
that it
like I
was...
said, I was 18, 19, 20 years old, something like that there, because that was built like 73, 72, 74, something like that there. It was early 70s. But like I said, Callis Contractors was the contractor, and like I said, it was lined up for a cemetery in the north end to collect all bones that we hit. They got a half of a 5-gallon bucket, took them to the place in the north end and buried them. And like I said, and I'm not too proud of what I'm getting ready to say, but I actually picked someone's skull up, and I walked around the job site with a skull in my hand. That was absolutely stupid of me, and I ain't too proud, of saying that I did that. That was stupid of what I did. That was 18, 19 years old. But like I said, we actually poured concrete right over top of bodies.
Well, that's a very interesting anecdote.
Well,
and I appreciate you sharing
to
that.
answer your point, sir, and I had nothing to do with this
Now,
gentleman's
we just
being
met this a
here.
couple months ago.
Pure act of God, serendipity. Yes, they would have built houses, poured macadam, whatever, over top of bodies.
I
because
think
they
the
were
essential
doing it.
question remains, can we prove that there are any bodies still buried there today?
No, because the city hasn't gone to the trouble or the time
Well,
or
I
cared
think that's-
enough to do an investigation.
I'm just saying that
Same
that's
with
one of
him.
my questions that I'm wondering out loud right now. But I get back to my point that, just because there is this rich history at this particular location doesn't preclude any reuse or adaptive reuse of that property. I think we cannot just mothball it and continue to keep it as a
Oh, I'm
shrine
not
to the
saying
past.
mothball it. And this whole presentation has, over the last couple months, has absolutely nothing to do with mothballing it. What I'm trying to make you gentlemen aware of, and some of you are already, that the building does have a rich history, and it
Sure.
involves American warriors.
Nobody's ever denied that.
And it has to do with shedding blood there and dying there, and that has to be acknowledged in any reuse of that building if we want to change the world's perception of our town. We're going to have to act like we really care about things like our rich history. And that building is our rich history. It goes all the way back to the very first people who settled this town and had a struggle to put in to make a go of it, and perhaps for a moment found themselves in financial trouble and ended up at the poorhouse. It also is a history of American soldiers who died there. Whichever side you happen to be on, you're now an American soldier. You were a warrior. You fought for your nation. So all I'm saying is, take into consideration our rich cultural history and do something about it. And I think, personally, just listening to it, putting those memorials on poles going down 1 block to North Locust and 2 blocks up North Locust to the almshouse and putting some modern American warriors' photos around the almshouse would stake it out as territory. Hallowed ground.
Until next time, Mary.
Until next time.
Thank you.
Just to come in and read the names I've got. Thank you.
That does it for citizen comments tonight. City administrator comments.
Just a reminder that Friday's a city holiday, so for non-continuous operations, City Hall will be closed, and we'll be back at work on Monday.
Great. Council comments? I guess we'll start with Ms. Nye and we'll work our way to the...
If I had any, I don't know where they're at. They're gone.
All right, Mr. Munson.
Mr. Mayor and Council, over the weekend, I took in some film, some movies at the film festival. I saw 3 movies. They were interesting movies, and one of them, in my view, was pretty well done. In fact, very well done. It was called The Widow's Mark, and the International Festival brought a lot of people into Hagerstown, and it's a good piece of work, and I congratulate all those people who have been involved in making it such a success.
Thank you. Mr. Metzner. Mr. Brubaker.
Yes, I want to reinforce what Councilman Munson said. I went to the premiere of the film festival and the presentations at the Maryland Theater, but the interesting thing were the people. There were people from Los Angeles, San Francisco, from Florida, from all over. And guess what? They think Hagerstown's a pretty neat place. They really like our potential. And I have this over and over again, and I wish we in our town and our region would value it the same way. Outsiders are always remarking on what we have and what we have to preserve here. So, but I appreciate, I'm going to thank the people that put the film festival on and bringing folks into downtown. And like I said, gets Hagerstown's name spread around. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Alshire.
Just for the record, I don't think I was around when the city took ownership of the Rochester property or probably in some abandoned state, removed it for parking. So I probably wasn't even alive then.
I don't think you were. The only comments I have, I would reiterate about the success of the Maryland International Film Festival. Not only people from all around the United States, but people from all around the world were at this. There's a guy from Africa, there's a guy from Australia. So there is definitely some acclaim that has become of this film festival. And I really want to thank the volunteer committee that puts it on, especially for their commitment to downtown, because this year they chose to keep all of the activities at the venues in downtown, and we're very grateful for that. And I think it only has potential to grow and become something really special. And I think their move to make it a little earlier is also helpful in that regard. And just another note, I want to congratulate the Parks and Rec Department for kicking off their spring sports. I personally enrolled to play kickball, and so I joined a kickball league, and that started last night, and it was good to get out and get some exercise and meet new people and have some fun. I think it was Plato who said you can learn more about a person in an hour of play than you can in a lifetime of conversation. So I had a great time with that, so I want to congratulate all the folks in the rec department who are putting that together. Any other comments? With that, we'll move to our minutes.
Mr. Mayor, I hereby move for the approval of minutes as presented for the mayor and council meetings held on January 20th, February 10th, February 17th, and February 24th, 2015.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor of approving the minutes, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say no. Approval of the minutes. Next up is the consent agenda.
Mr. Mayor, I hereby move that all the consent agenda be approved as presented.
Second.
Motion and a second. All those in, any discussion?
I would request that item number 2 be removed and listed separately, which is the Public Community Access Channel contract.
No problem with that amendment.
All right, so the amended motion is to approve the consent agenda without number 2 under the Department of Community and Economic Development, the consultant services. And the second was by Mr. Munson. You're okay with that? All those in favor of that amended motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say no. Motion carries. Let's consider the item consultant services for public access channel. Can I entertain a motion on that?
I so move, Mr. Mayor.
The motion is to approve the consultant services for the public access channel.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Munson, seconded by Mr. Metzner. Any discussion? All those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, say no.
No.
Motion carries 4-1. Thank you. Unfinished business, we have the approval of an ordinance amending Chapter 216 of the City Code.
Mayor, I hereby move to approve an ordinance to amend Chapter 216, Streets and Sidewalks of the City Code by deleting Articles 1 through 7 thereof and replacing the herein repealed articles with new Articles 1 through 7.
Second.
Motion made by Mr. Brubaker, seconded by Mr. Metzner. Any discussion? All those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say no. Motion carries and the ordinance is approved. Next, under unfinished business, the approval of an ordinance amending Chapter 60 of the City Code.
Mr. Mayor, I hereby move to approve an ordinance to amend Chapter 60 Vehicles and Traffic of the City Code to add a new section prohibiting the obstruction and reservation of parking spaces.
Second.
Motion made by Ms. Nye, seconded by Mr. Metzner. Any discussion? All those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say no. Motion carries. Under new business, item A is the introduction of an ordinance amending Chapter 33 of the Code of Ethics.
Mayor, I hereby move for the mayor and council to introduce an ordinance to amend Chapter 33 Code of Ethics of the City Code, to amend the time period for post-employment limitations and restrictions on elected officials, and to clarify the prohibition and disclosure requirements regarding gifts.
Second.
Motion made by Mr. Brubaker, seconded by Mr. Munson. Any discussion? All those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say no. Motion carries and the ordinance is introduced. Next is the approval of an ordinance, the introduction of an ordinance amending Chapter 10, Administration of Government of the City Code to revise the quorum definition of boards, commissions, and authorities.
Mayor, I hereby move that the mayor and city council introduce an ordinance to amend Chapter 10, Administration of Government, Part 2, Section 1022.b of the Code of the City of Hagerstown. This code amendment will revise the definition of quorum for meetings of boards, commissions, and authorities from 2/3 majority to a majority of the appointed members.
Second.
Motion made by Mr. Brubaker, seconded by Mr. Metzner. Any discussion? All those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say no. Motion carries. Item C is the approval of a resolution for the 2015 Summer Play Camp at the Hagerstown YMCA.
Mr. Mayor, I hereby move for the approval of a resolution to authorize the execution of a contract with the Hagerstown YMCA to conduct summer play camps for the 2015 season from June 22nd, 2015 through August 14th, 2015 at Helene Park and Pangborn Park. The camps will each serve approximately 60 youth per day at a total cost of $32,839. Funding is from the Parks and Recreation operating budget.
Second.
Motion made by Mr. Metzner, made by Mr. Munson, seconded by Mr. Metzner. Any discussion? All those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say no. Resolution is approved. Next is the 2015 Summer Play Camp operation for Girls, Inc.
Mr. Mayor, I move for the approval of resolution to authorize the execution of a contract with Girls Incorporated of Washington County to conduct a summer play camp for the 2015 season from June 15, 2015 through August 7, 2015 at Girls Incorporated. Camp will serve approximately 80 to 100 youth per day at a cost of $15,000. Funding is from the Parks and Recreation operating budget.
Second.
Motion made by Mr. Metzner, seconded by Mr. Munson. Any discussion? All those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say no. Motion carries and the resolution is approved. The next is the resolution for the 2015 Summer Play Camp at the Robert W. Johnson Community Center.
Mr. Mayor, I move for the approval of a resolution to authorize the execution of a contract with the Robert W. Johnson Community Center, Inc. to operate a summer play camp for the 2015 season from June 15, 2015 through August 7, 2015 at Wheaton Park. The camp will serve approximately 80 youth per day at a cost of $25,600. Funding is from the Parks and Recreation operating budget.
Second.
Motion made by Mr. Alshire, seconded by Mr. Brubaker. Any discussion? All those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say no. Resolution is approved. Item F is the approval of a grant agreement with the Maryland Department of Health and Mental Hygiene.
Mr. Mayor, I hereby move to authorize the city to enter into a grant agreement with the Maryland Department of Health and Mental Hygiene. The grant is $10,000 and has no cash match. By accepting this grant, we will expand the Recreation Division's health and fitness programs and develop a recreation program guide.
Second.
Motion made by Ms. Nye and seconded by Mr. Munson. Any discussion? All those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say no. Motion carries. Next up is the approval of an agreement with the U.S. Drug Enforcement Agency.
Mr. Mayor, I hereby move for the mayor and council approval of memorandum of understanding with the U.S. Drug Enforcement Agency, DEA. This agreement is for the purpose of deputizing and the remaining 2 HPD officers assigned to the Washington County Narcotics Task Force. Deputizing the remaining agents will improve the efficiency of the Washington County Narcotics Task Force office and satisfy the security requirements of the DEA. There are no costs to the city.
Second.
Motion made by Ms. Nye, seconded by Mr. Munson. Any discussion? All those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say no. Motion carries. Next up is the approval of the Appalachian Regional Commission FY16 project funding request.
Mr. Mayor, I hereby move that the mayor and council authorize the submission of the following project to the county commissioners for funding from the fiscal year 2016 Appalachian Regional Commission grant. Downtown building recreation for student housing, requesting $300,000 in ARC funds.
Second.
Motion made by Mr. Munson, seconded by Mr. Brubaker. Any discussion? All those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say no. Motion carries. Next up is the approval of the livable streets policy and design guidelines.
Mayor, hereby move to authorize the approval of a livable or complete streets policy and design guidelines. Policy and guidelines seek to better integrate physical activity into our daily lives through increased emphasis on walking, bicycling, and public transportation, and improves public health, reduces traffic congestion, enhances air quality, and supports local economic development.
Second.
Motion made by Mr. Brubaker, seconded by Mr. Metzner. Any discussion? All those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say no. Motion carries. Next, item J is the approval of a transfer for the Hagerstown Police Department vehicle to the First Hose Company.
Mr. Mayor, hereby move for mayor and council approval the transfer of an unmarked 97 GMC Jimmy with 143,431 miles to the First Hose Fire Company on South Potomac. This vehicle is no longer used by the Hagerstown Police Department.
Second.
Motion made by Mr. Alshire, seconded by Mr. Metzner. Any discussion? All those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say no. Motion carries. Next item is the approval of an extension of annual financial and single audit contract for 1 year with SB and Company.
Mayor, hereby move for the mayor and council to authorize and approve a one-year extension of the city's annual financial audit contract with SB and Company LLC. SB and Company was originally awarded the annual financial audit that started with the completion of the city's FY11 financial statements. The one-year contract extension would be for the completion of the FY15 financial audit, which includes the single audit. Cost to perform the FY15 audit is $38,000. It's the same fee charged to complete our FY14 audit.
Second.
Motion made by Mr. Brubaker and seconded by Mr. Munson. Any discussion? I would just like to note one comment that I forgot to make earlier was to give thanks to the finance department for all their hard work and the city administrator in putting together the budget. I know that's an arduous process, and everyone should have received their copy already, so you won't have to wait until midnight or 11:59 and 59 seconds. So I want to give them a hearty thanks for all their work on that. I know it took a lot of effort. Any other discussion? All those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say no. Motion carries. Next is the approval of a contract to renew, approval to renew the contract for our benefits consultant, CBiz.
Mr. Mayor, hereby move for mayor and city council approval to renew a 5-year contract for benefit consulting services with CBiz with the following annual rates as follows. Effective 7/1/15, $57,000. Effective July 1, 2016, $57,000. Effective 7/1/17, $57,000. Effective July 1, 2018, $60,000. Effective July 1, 2019, $60,000.
Second.
Motion made by Mr. Alshire, seconded by Mr. Metzner. Any discussion? All those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say no. Motion carries. Next is the approval to change the service provider for the vision coverage.
Mr. Mayor, I hereby move that the mayor and city council approve the acceptance of changing the administration of the vision benefit plan to NVA on July 1st, 2015. This is an employee-paid benefit, and this vendor offered similar coverage with a reduction in the employee rate. The annual cost reduction for employee premiums is $12,968.
Second.
Motion made by Mr. Munson, seconded by Mr. Metzner. Any discussion? All those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say no. Motion carries. Next is the approval to change the service provider for the city-sponsored life insurance, voluntary life insurance, and voluntary long-term disability insurance.
Mr. Mayor, I hereby move the mayor and city council approve the acceptance of changing the administration of the city-sponsored life, voluntary life, and long-term disability plans to Aetna on July 1, 2015. The city-sponsored life insurance coverage will result in a premium reduction of $10,250.
Second.
Motion made by Mr. Metzner, seconded by Mr. Munson. Any discussion? All those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say no. Motion carries. Next up is the approval of a contract for safe routes to school at Bester Elementary School with C. William Hetzer, Inc., $281,761.45.
Mr. Mayor, I hereby move for mayor and council approval of a contract with C. William Hetzer, Inc. of Hagerstown, Maryland, the amount of $281,761.45 to construct multi-use paths and pedestrian signal upgrades for students at Bester Elementary School. This project is funded through a Safe Routes to School grant from the state of Maryland that funds 100% of the construction costs. This award is contingent upon the state's concurrence with the award.
Second.
Motion made by Mr. Brubaker, seconded by Mr. Munson. Mr. Metzner. Any discussion?
Yes, I want to thank the state for continuing to keep this and some other pedestrian sidewalk programs available, and our staff for making use of those programs. It's been a real godsend in locations in our city.
Any other discussion? All those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say no. Motion carries. Last but not least, a motion authorizing membership in the Next Century Cities Organization.
Mr. Mayor, I hereby move that the mayor and the city council authorize membership of the Next Century Cities Organization at no cost and approve support of the principles of the organization. By joining, the city of Hagerstown affirms its belief in the importance of broadband access for its future growth and prosperity by supporting the following Next Century Cities principles. First, high-speed internet is necessary infrastructure. Second, the internet is nonpartisan. Third, communities must enjoy self-determination. Fourth, high-speed internet is a community-wide endeavor. Fifth, meaningful cooperation drives progress. And last, collaboration benefits all.
I just want to correct your second to the last point. You said meaningful cooperation, but it's actually
It's
meaningful competition.
It's competition. Sorry
Drives
about that,
progress.
Mayor. Guess I need to change my glasses.
That's okay.
I would second that, Mr. Mayor.
Second that motion. Any discussion? All those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say no. Motion carries. And we're adjourned. Thank you very much.